Welcome to Mr. Ace Math. In this example, we're going to take this fraction 8 over 11 and convert it into its equivalent decimal using these three steps. So step number 1 is to divide the numerator by the denominator. I know I'm going to have to divide, so let's set up our long division notation. Next, we need to make sure we know what the numerator and the denominator are. In this fraction, the top number is the numerator. And the bottom value, the 11, is our denominator. Since we're dividing the numerator by the denominator, this means that 8 will go inside the long division notation. So let's write 8 right inside here. The 11 is doing the dividing, which means it's going to go outside the long division notation. So we'll put that right here. Step number 2. We're going to place the decimal point in the dividend and the quotient. The dividend is the number inside the long division notation. So we're going to put a decimal point right after the 8, and then also put one directly above it in our quotient. Next, we're going to annex zeros as needed. This word annex might look challenging, but it just means that we're going to put zeros to the right of the decimal point as placeholders. So let's start by putting 1 0. And as we need them, we'll keep placing them up here in the dividend. So let's start our division. So how many times does 11 go into 8? Well, that's 0 times. So I'll put a 0 here, and then I won't divide 8, I'll divide 80. And how many times can 11 go into 80? Well, that's 7 times. So I'll put a 7 here on top of the 0, and then multiply. What's 7 times 11? That's 77. So I'll put 77 right under 80. Then I'll subtract, and I can't do 0 minus 7, so I'll borrow from this 8, make it a 7, and make this 0 a 10. 10 minus 7 is 3. And 7 minus 7 is 0. So my remainder is not 0, and there's no pattern happening yet, which means that I'm not done. So that means we'll have to annex another 0, bring it down, and then repeat the process. How many times can 11 go into 30? That's 2 times. And 2 times 11 is 22. So I'll subtract that. And I can't do 0 minus 2, so I'll borrow from this 3, turn it into a 2, and make the 0 a 10. 10 minus 2 is 8. And 2 minus 2 is 0. So now I have an 8. Since I don't see a pattern yet, and since there's still a remainder, that means I'm not done. So I'll have to annex another 0, bring that down, and repeat the process again. How many times can 11 go into 80? That's 7 times. So I'll put a 7 here. 7 times 11 is 77. I'll subtract that. I can't do 0 minus 7, so I'll borrow from this 8, make it a 7, and make the 0 a 10. 10 minus 7 is 3. And 7 minus 7 is 0. Now this is starting to look really familiar. Remember, we started off dividing 80 by 11, and we just divided 80 by 11 again. This gave us a remainder of 3, and that's going to turn into 30, and it looks like we just might have a pattern here. So we're going to have to annex a 0, bring that 0 all the way down to make a 30. 11 goes into 30 2 times. So I'll put a 2 right above the 0. That's going to be 22. I'm going to subtract that. We can't do 0 minus 2, so we'll borrow from the 3, make it a 2. This 0 becomes 10. 10 minus 2 is 8. And it looks like we would have that pattern repeating all over again. First we're dividing 80, then we're dividing 30. Then we're dividing 80, then we're dividing 30. And again, if we annex another 0, we're going to be dividing 80. So what we have here is what's called a repeating decimal, where we have 0.7272, and that 72 is going to go on forever and ever. So we would write it like this, 0.72 repeating. So let's put our final answer in this box. So the fraction 8 over 11 is equal to the decimal 0.72 repeating, or 72 hundredths repeating.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Questions? Comments? Leave them down below.
And thanks for using Mr. Ace Math. Don't just pass math, ace it.